Good day, everyone. Following our previous discussion on large-scale energy system, today we are shifting our focus to a more personal but equally powerful applications, the solar-powered home. In this session, we're going to explore how a standard residence can be transformed from a simple consumer of electricity into an active, synchronized mini power plant. As we move through this presentation, my colleague Michael John Estrella, Paolo Villacorta, Rodrigo Carrion, Sander Denzel Villamor, and I, Cedric E. Mercolita, will take you through the technical logic that makes this possible. We aren't just going to put panels on a roof. We are talking about sophisticated engineering strategy that integrates power electronics, energy storage, and grid synchronization. So, why is the transition to a solar powered home so critical right now? To put it simply, the Philippines has some of the highest electricity rates in all of Asia. For the average Filipino family, the power bill isn't just a monthly expense, it's a major economic burden. By shifting solar, we are moving towards energy sovereignty. But beyond the individual, there is a massive collective importance. Our national grid often struggles with thin reserves during summer months, leading to a rotational brownout. Every homes that adopt a solar-powered system act as a relief valve for the utility grid. By generating our own power at the point of consumption, we reduce the stress of aging transmission lines and contribute to a more resilient, decentralized energy infrastructure. We are essentially becoming part of the solution to the country's energy crisis, one roof at a time. Okay, now let's talk about the viability. There is a lingering myth that solar solar system is too complex or too expensive for the typical neighborhood. That simply isn't just the case anymore. The modularity of photovoltaic system is the greatest strength. You don't need a massive field. You only need a few square meters of unshaded roof. In the Philippines, we are geographically positioned in the solar belt, receiving some of the best solar regions in the world. This makes math more very simple. The fuel is free and it's delivered to our roof every single morning. Furthermore, with the local availability of the high-quality grid-tie inverters and protection devices, the supply chain is ready. From urban subdivision to remote coastal areas, solar is most scalable energy solution we have. It is no longer a luxury for the few. It is a viable, engineered reality for many. So, what does what what this truly marvelous is the silent engineering happening behind the scene. Think about the physics involved. We are capturing photon massless particles of light and using them to knock electrons loose in a silicon wafer to create a direct current. But the real magic is in the synchronization. As an electrical engineers, we appreciate the complexity of taking a fluctuating DC source and converting it into a perfect 60 Hz sine wave that matches the utility grid's frequency exactly. This happened instantaneously, without a single moving part. No gear, no combustion, no noise. And it's a masterclass in power electronics and the solid state physics. We are witnessing a technology that can power a refrigerator and an air conditioner or an entire household using nothing but a silent, chemical free interaction with sunlight. That is the engineering marvel we are presenting today. The solar powered home. 3. Solar powered home. We have three configuration. First, we have the grid tie. Now we established the importance of the solar. Let's look at how we actually deploy it. As an engineers, we categorize residential solar into three distinct architecture. We don't just choose them based on budget, we choose them based on the specific energy needs and the reliability of the local infrastructure. First, we have the grid-tied setup. A grid-tied system links your home directly to your utility grid to offset electricity costs without the use of batteries. It allows you to trade excess power with the utility company but will shut down during a blackout for safety. So think of this as a symbiotic relationship with a utility provider. Instead of storing energy in expensive batteries, you're using the national grid as your virtual battery. During the peak of the day or when your panels are overproducing, you are essentially selling that energy back. It is the most streamlined and efficient way to achieve a rapid return on investment, making it a standard, making it the standard for the most urban residential development. Next is the off-grid configuration. An off-grid configuration system is a completely independent setup that relies on a large battery bank to provide 24/7 without any connection to the utility company. It requires enough storage to keep the home running through the night and during periods of poor weather. This is a total departure from utility system. The engineering challenge here shifts toward storage and load management. Because there is no external backup, the system must be sized perfectly to handle the worst case scenario like 3 consecutive days of raining or anything else. It offers a 100% energy sovereignty, which is the game changer for provincial areas or islands where the main grid hasn't reached yet or it is very highly unstable. Next is next is the hybrid. So a hybrid system stays connected to the grid while also utilizing a battery backup to ensure your home remains powered during an outage. This configuration provides security of stored energy with the reliability of a constant grid connection. So, if grid type is about economics and off-grid is about independence, hybrid is about resiliency. It's a sophisticated setup that remains synchronized with the grid but keeps a smaller, dedicated battery reserve. This solves one major weakness of a standard grid-tied energy system, the ability to keep your lights on during blackout. It's becoming the gold standard for modern home that want both saving of a net metering and securing the security of backup power. While all these three are viables, our deep dive will focus specifically on grid-tied configuration as it's the most common entry point for solar integration in our current market. Let's look at how the synchronization actually works. A grid-tied configuration is designed to operate in parallel with your local utility provider, serving as a synchronized power source that prioritize solar energy for your home's immediate needs. This setup effectively turns your residence into a mini power plant that interacts dynamically with the wider electrical infrastructure. First, we have the operational energy. When we look at the grid-tied configuration, the first thing we understand is its operational energy with the sun. This system is designed to completely function exclusively during daylight hours. As soon as the sun hits the panel, the inverter begins feeding solar energy directly into your home's electrical panel. The goal here is to immediate displacement by consuming solar energy the moment it is produced. You are reducing or in many cases completely eliminating the need to pull expensive power from the utility grid during the day. It's a real-time interaction where your roof become your primary energy sources and the grid becomes your backup. Next we have is the grid interaction and credit. The second pillar of this setup is grid interaction because we don't have a physical tank to store energy. Any surplus energy that your home doesn't use isn't wasted. It is exported back to the utility grid in the Philippines. In the Philippines, program like net metering allows this exported energy to be recorded. This is where the financial magic happens. These exported credits can offset your nighttime consumption, frequently resulting in a zero bill scenario. In some high production setup, the homeowners can even earn payments or credits from the distribution utility, essentially turning a monthly liability into a revenue generating asset. Next is safety and nighttime limitations. However, we must be clear about the nighttime limitation and the safety protocols because this architecture lacks a battery reservoir that cannot produce or provide power at nighttime. But more importantly, the system is engineered with a critical safety feature. It automatically shuts down during brownout. This is a mandatory requirement to prevent what we call islanding. If the utility grid is down for repair, it is vital that your solar system doesn't backfeed voltage into those lines. This protects utility line workers from unexpected high voltage while they are trying to restore service. While it means that you are without power during blackout, it ensures your system is safe and responsible part of a national grid. Lastly, we have the economic focus. The economic focus is what makes the most popular choice for Filipino homeowners. The primary objective of a grid-tied architecture is to achieve maximum return on investment by removing the need for expensive, heavy, and short-lived battery banks. We lower the initial cost of the system significantly. Every peso spent goes directly into high efficiency energy displacement. This results in the fastest possible payback period, making it the most mathematically sound choice for someone looking to lower their monthly expenditures and gain long-term financial relief from rising electricity costs. Now we understand the logic and safety standards governing the system as whole. We need to look at at the physical components that make this possible. A system is only as good as its individual parts from the protection device that keep it safe from a specific chemistry of panels themselves. Let's move forward and break down the basic parts of the system to see what actually goes into a professional grid installation. But before that, I'm going to show you what solar power home grid tied system look like. It is the solar panel. Nakita nyo ito yung solar panel. This one, ginagather ng solar panel yung energy ng gagaling sa sun. Napupunta ngayon siya sa may inverter. Ito yung local power distributor natin. Ito yung meter. Ngayon lahat sila sa may inverter. As you can see, we don't have any battery because this is a grid tied, not a hybrid type of solar powered home. Now, solar power home grid tied basic parts. As we move from the theory of a grid-tied connection to the actual physical installation, we encounter the basic parts of the system. In engineering, a system is only as strong as its weakest link. While the panels gets most of attention, a professional grade installation requires a specific assemble of hardware to ensure longevity and safety. We start with the grid tie inverter, which is, as we discussed, is the brain of the operation. But to protect that brain, we integrated DC and AC surge protection device, or we call SPD, and circuit breakers. These are the first line of defense against lightning strikes or grid fluctuations, ensuring that an external electrical fault doesn't destroy the homeowner's investment. Beyond the power electronics, we have the critical connective tissue. We use time-delayed switches to manage how the system reconnects after a fault. and specialized MC4 connectors, which are rated for high voltage DC in harsh outdoor environments. Even mounting hardware, the solar rails, mid clamps, and end clamps are vital engineering components. In the Philippines, we must be calculated to withstand high wind speed during typhoon season. We aren't just placing panels. We are anchoring a power plant to ensure structures. Every bolt and every rail is a part of calculated load-bearing design meant to last for decades. However, all of these components exist to support one primary function, the collection of energy. Everything we see here, the breakers, the rails, the inverter, is designed to serve the most critical piece of hardware in the electrical and the entire system. It is time we delve into the actual heart of the solar-powered home. Let's move forward and look at the physics and the function of a solar panel system. As you can see, this is solar panel. This is what actual solar panel look like with its mounting, with mounts. Okay. Now we've called solar panels the heart of the system. But as engineers, we should look at its modular power supply. A singular cell, that small square you see on the panel is essential semiconductor diode that produce roughly zero point 0.5 volts by itself. It is not very useful for home. The marvel happens in the series connection by wiring dozens of cells together inside a single module. We can stack that to a rich level that our inverters can actually use. This is why we have standards like 12 volts and 24 volts panels. It is not just a random number, it is a calculated arrangement of cells designed to overcome the resistance of the wiring and provides a high enough potential to push energy into system. One of the most important things to understand during installation and testing is the difference between open circuit voltage and load voltage. If you take a multimeter to a panel in the sun without it being connected to anything, you might see reading as high as 21 volts or 26 volts for a 12-volt rated panel. To a student, this might look like a malfunction, but it's actually a fundamental characteristic of a photovoltaic effect. The high voltage is the potential energy waiting to be used. As soon as we integrate that panel into an active circuit, meaning we connect it to the load or inverter, that voltage naturally stabilizes to up to 14 or 18 range. This voltage drop is a sign that work is being done and electrons are flowing. Understanding this gap is crucial for sizing or circuit breaker and ensuring our inverters don't get fried up by high voltage surge on a bright cold morning. Furthermore, furthermore, the function of a panel is heavily dependent on the environmental factors. We don't just care about lights, we care about radiance and temperature. While while we want maximum light, we actually want to lower temperature as high heat can increase internal resistance of the silicon cells. This is where our choice of materials becomes a deciding factors in how much power we actually harvest at the end of the day. But not all panels are created equal. They are arranged, the silicon and the purity of the crystal used to lead vastly different results in terms of efficiency, cost, and longevity. Now that we understand the electrical behavior of a standard solar module, now let's look at the two titans of industry. We're moving to compare high performance monocrystal versus cost effective polycrystalline effect. Now, like what I said earlier, we're going to talk about the two titans of types of solar panel. But before that, let's talk about solar panel connection. So we are looking at the different ways that we can interconnect our photovoltaic solar panels. It is crucial to understand that each connection type produces different ratings depending on the specific output requirements of your home system. You can think of you can think of solar panel layouts much like a battery configuration. For example, we will use the base rating of 12 volts and 10 amperes per panel. Now, let's start with the series panel. In this example, we have utilized three panels. We use this type of connection when our goal is to increase the output voltage. Since these three 12 volts panels are wired in series, our total system ratings become 36 volts. However, because this is a series circuits, we remains the constant of 10 amperes. To find the total output power, we apply the formula P is equals to IV. In this case, 10 amps times 36 volt gives us a total of 360 watts. Next is now we're looking at the parallel connection. The principle is reversed. The voltage remains constant while the current increases. Using the same ratings of 12 volts and 10 amps per panel, we are connected. When we connect three panels are in parallel, the current jump 30 amperes, while the voltage stays at 12 volts. When calculating power, we use the same P is equals to IV formula. The result is still 360. You'll notice that the total power output for both series and parallels is identical. This isn't just a coincidence. As long as the rating and the numbers of panels remain the same, the total rated output will be equal regardless of connection type. Now, this brings up the important question. Can we combine series and parallel in a single connection? The answer is absolutely yes. This depends entirely on a specific rated output your system needs to ensure a smooth power supply to the home's load. However, there is a golden rule here. The number of photovoltaic panels must be always be balanced. Simply put, you cannot use the odd numbers like 1, like 3, 5, or 7 for this combination, as it will cause an unbalanced supply. In this example, we are going to use 4 panels and their 12 volts and 10 amp each. We wired two pairs in series to create two sets of 24 volts and 10 amps. Then we wired two sets in parallel. In the end, our total rated output for the four panels in a combination and connection is 24 volts and 20 amperes. While using our formula, 20 amps times 24 volts, the total power output is 480 watts. This is higher than our previous example because we increased the panel count to 4. And if we use a 4 panel in a pure series or pure parallel setup, the result will still be 480 watts. Understanding this basic photovoltaics connection is vital for us engineers. It allows us to adjust rated output specifically to the needs of the system we are designing. Now that we mastered the logic of how panel works, let's look at the physical difference between panels themselves. Now that the math is clear, we can finally be able to decide which type of panel is best suited for our installation. Let's move to the final comparison, monocrystalline versus polycrystalline. Now that we've mastered the logic behind our system connection, let's focus on actual hardware. We have various types of solar panels available, and choosing the right ones usually depends on the specific requirements of your system because no two setups are exactly the same. It is vital to know which panel types fit your specific need. Okay. The two most common types of you will encounter today are monocrystalline, which is these, and polycrystalline photovoltaic solar panels. While both are designed to convert sunlight into electricity, they each possess unique characteristics you must understand before a choice. We are going to look at their difference and identify the ideas.
So, good day everyone. I am Mr. Paulo Villacorta from BSE CB, and I'm the reporter for solar panel types. And it is from solar powered home with tide. So, solar panel types is uh, divided to many factors: monocrystalline solar panels and polycrystalline solar panels. The silicon arrangement is one pure silicon crystal, many silicon fragments metal together. Cost more expensive, less expensive. Kapag sa polycrystalline solar panels, mas mura. While sa appearance naman, panels have black and hue kapag sa monocrystalline solar panels. While sa polycrystalline solar panels naman is panels have blue hue. Sa efficiency naman, mas more efficient yung monocrystalline solar panels, while less efficient naman yung polycrystalline solar panels. Sa lifespan naman is maabot ng 25 to 40 years ang monocrystalline solar panels, while yung polycrystalline solar panels ay maabot ng 20 to 35 years. And temperature coefficient, lower temperature coefficient to monocrystalline solar panels, and also making them more efficient in heat, while polycrystalline solar panels is making them less efficient in heat and high temperature coefficient. So let's proceed to parts and function ng solar power home grid tide. So the first one is the inverter. What is inverter? Inverter converts the DC output of the solar panel into AC, which is standard used by all commercial households. Appliances, hence the inverter output matches the voltage within the house that is coming from the grid. Traditionally, there is usually one central inverter in the solar system. A more recent invention has been the microinverters. Microinverters are connected to individual solar panels, so that each individual panels provide high voltage alternating current. These setups are typically used only with a grid-tied systems and are not suitable for the system with battery backup. For a grid-tied system, through costly, they do offer some significant benefits over the more traditional central inverter. A grid-tied inverter unique characteristic over the other types is it is automatically shut down the system when there is power interruption. So kapag wala daw kuryente or nagkakaroon ng hindi inaasahang pangyayari sa kuryente, nagkakaroon ng automatically response para patayin yung sarili, nung inverter. So, kagandang parts nun, ng inverter na. So, modified sine wave inverter. In pure sine wave inverters, the AC power produced by the inverter very closely matches an actual sine wave. In modified sine wave inverters, the polarity abruptly switches from positive to negative. When looking at the wave, it has stair-step square pattern where the polarity is flipped back and forth. The choppy wave can negatively affect more delicate, sensitive equipment. If you have medical equipment you need to power, such as CPAP machine, you won't be able to use a modified sine wave inverter. Additionally, in many cases, you will hear hum with devices attached to a modified sine wave inverter. The only advantage of this type of over the pure sine wave is that this is much cheaper. So, mas mura daw ito kumpara sa iba. Pure sine wave versus modified sine wave. So, makikita natin na sa pure sine wave, ito ay pa-curve or bumubuo ng 360 degrees na angle. while the modified sine wave is more likely a square or combination of square na plotted yung kanyang dulo. So, parts din ng solar power home grid side is DC circuit breaker. DC circuit breaker, ano nga ba ito? Ano nga ba ang ginagawa ng DC circuit breaker at bakit kailangan ito sa solar power home grid side? The circuit breaker is sometimes referred as the PV disconnects are placed between the solar panels and the inverter, or in some cases, built into the inverter. So, ang DC circuit breaker daw ay nilalagay sa pagitan ng solar panels and inverter. Built into the inverter. So, just like a typical circuit breaker, it acts as overcurrent protective device. Short circuit on the part of solar array may produce a high value of current which might damage the inverter or the system as whole. Before it happens, the DC circuit breaker acts as automatic switch disconnecting the inverter from the solar array. It may also serve as manual switch if there is a need to turn the solar power system off or isolate the solar panel from the rest of the system. So, ang DC circuit breaker ay kusang namamatay kapag may hindi inaasahang pangyayari sa current or merong power interruption. And also, hinihiwalay niya yung solar panels and inverter kapag nagkaroon ng hindi magandang pangyayari. Halimbawa, nagkaroon ng short circuit. Kusa na niyang papatayin at paghihiwalayin yung dalawa. DC surge protection device. The DC SPD are placed parallel to the DC CV. SPD generally protects the system from power surge, or more appropriately called voltage transient. SPD redirects this excess power to the ground. In PV systems, since solar panels are heavily exposed in the environment, transient voltage is primarily caused by lightning either directly or indirectly. Multiple interconnection within power cables is very susceptible to electromagnetically induced transient where power surge could also rise. Transient voltage is the occurrence of very high voltage in a very short duration of time. First 200 of microsecond. Exposure to this transient voltage may cause catastrophic components damage, leading the system failure. So, kailangan ng maingat na pagmamanage or manggagawa. So, AC surge protection device. The AC SPD are replaced parallel to the AC CV. Just like DC SPD, this serve as protection against transient voltage, but this time on the AC side of the PV system. SPD redirects this excess power to the ground. Multiple equipment connection on the grid, either internal or external, can also be cause electrical anomalies for power surge could also arise. So, for time delay switch naman is the AC SPD are placed parallel to the AC CV. Just like the DC SPD, they serve as a protection. So, naulit lang pala. So, sa time delay switch, this can also be called as power on delay. If delay the turning on any disk can also be called as power electronics device for a desired time interval. This device serve its useful purpose usually when brownout occurs. After a brownout, when the power have been already restored, there is a tendency of power surge which may damage the system if it's being turned on right away. To prevent this time delay switch delay the turning on of the system for a minute or even a bit more. So, ang time delay switch daw ay isang malaking pakinabang para sa sa solar power home grid type dahil ito yung nagpoprotekta sa power surge na nagaganap pag nagkaroon ng power interruption or nawalan ng kuryente. Dahil sa power surge na pagbalik ng kuryente o dahil sa pagbalik ng kuryente may malakas na daloy ng voltahe na kung saan makaka-apekto ito para masira yung machine. So, time delay switch ang nagpoprotekta dahil dinedelay niya yung automatically na pag-on ng machine. So, programmable timer switch. The net metering. Ito yung programmable timer switch pala kanina. So, the net metering naman, net metering allows customers or distributions, utilities to install on-site renewable energy RE facility not exceeding 100 kilowatts in capacity so they can generate electricity for their own use. Any electricity generated that is not consumed by the customer is automatically exported to the DU's distribution system. The DU then gives a peso credit for the excess electricity received equivalent to DU's blended generation cost, excluding other generation adjustment, and deducts the credits earned to the customer electric bill. Kailan ba ito nagkaroon sa Pilipinas? On 27 May 2013, the Energy Regulatory Commission adopted ERC Resolution 09 Series of 2013 approving the rules enabling the net metering program for renewable energy. This resolution was published on 10 July 2013 is a newspaper of general circulation in the country and took effect 15 days thereafter. Thus, the net metering rules took effect in the Philippines on July 24, 2013. The net metering program is available only to on-grid distribution system or DUs connected to the transmission grid. By generating electricity for own use, you reduce the amount of electricity you buy from your local DU. The rate of saving or avoid costs realized on electricity generated for own use is equivalent to the DU's retail rate consisting of charge for generation, transmission, system loss, distribution, subsidies, taxes, and other charges. You also earn peso credit on any excess electricity exported to the DU equivalent to the DU's blended generation cost, excluding other generation adjustments. The peso credit earned is then used to reduce your electric bills. The DU may OPT to install or optional to install an unidirectional meters once to meter energy you buy from your local DU and the other to meter the energy you exported to the DU. The DU may its own option install a single bidirectional meter that can meter both important and export energy if it finds it to be more economical. The DU may also install third meter in proximity to your RE facility to meter its total RE generation. The total RE generation shall earn for the host DU RE certificate which the DU can use to comply with its renewable portfolio standards or RLPS insured obligations. The DU customers who are in a good credit standing in the payment of their electric bills to their DU are qualified to participate in the net metering program for renewable energy. These customers are referred to in the rules of qualified end users. So, hanggang dyan na lang po yung part ko and thank you po.
Good day everyone, I'm Rodrigo Carion. For in that case, the solar power system is being installed and doesn't apply for net metering. Any excess energy that is being fed to the grid will be billed to the customer. For the most of people installed solar panels, they imagine their electricity bill dropping towards zero immediately. However, the image on on the screen is illustrate a counter to reality. And without a formal net metering management, your solar system could actually make your electric bill go up instead of down. This happened because of how traditional electricity meters designed to work. A standard utility meter in one-way street is only job is to measure how much power is passing through it. It doesn't inherently know which direction the power is moving. If you have a grid tied system without a net metering, your home stays connected to the utility lines for those times when the sun isn't shining, but during the peak of the day, your panels often produce a more energy than your lights and appliances can actually use. Let's look the example of this photo. This from the screen. If your solar array is pumping out of 5 kilowatt of power, but your home is only demanding a 4 kilowatt, that extra 1 kilowatt has to go somewhere. It automatically flows back out into the utility grid to be used by your neighbor. In a net metering setup, your meter would spin backward or lag a credit for that kilowatt. But without the agreement, the meter simply sees energy movement and registers it as consumptions. In short, you are being charged for the energy you are giving away. You're essentially paying the utility company for the privilege of providing them with free electricity. This is why the metering application is just as important as the hardware on your roof. To make the investment meaningfully and economically viable, you must ensure the utility provider recognizes you as a prosumer, someone who both consumes and produces, rather than just a consumer with a very confused meter. For another question, is there any other way besides net metering that a customer having a solar power system producing excess energy produced during the day and yet will not pay for it? The answer is yes. The Because now that the understand the financial risk of sending excess energy back to the uncorporate grid, a natural question arises: is there any way to enjoy solar benefits without the paperwork of net metering? As this image shows that the answer is definitely yes, and it comes into the form of a specialized piece of technology called a inverter with limiter. Think of a standard solar inverter is a floodgate that stays without open, letting all the energy your panels produce rush through. However, act more like a smart faucet. It is used a sensor, often a small clamp called ACT or current transformers, to monitor exactly how much electricity your home is using at any given seconds. If your panels are capable of producing 5 kilowatts but your home only needs 3 kilowatts to run the AC and the refrigerator, and the limiter tells the inverter to throttle back, it internationally restricts the energy output so that it's perfectly matches the home's demand. By doing this, the system ensures that zero energy flows back to your utility meter and into the public grid. It essentially get to use the 100% of the clean energy you need, but you never trigger that double billing trap we discussed earlier because the meter never sees an export. It's a perfect solution for homeowners living in areas where net metering policies are unfavorable, or for those who want to avoid the long approval process and the extra cost of changing their utility meters. From this diagram, first the solar panels capture DC or their current electricity from the sunlight. This raw energy travels through a DC circuit breaker, which acts as a safety switch, and into the MPPT solar charge controller. The MPPT is the brain of the charging process. From this diagram, and the MPPT is the brain of the charging process. It's optimize the voltage coming from the panels to ensure the battery is charged as efficiently as possible without being damaged. This battery serves as your energy savior, storing power for use when the sun goes down or during a cloud's cover. Finally, the stored this energy from the battery reaches the off-grid inverter. Since your home appliance run on a AC or alternating current, the inverter's job is to invert the DC battery power into the 220 volts or 100 volts AC power we use every day. This power passes through one final AC or circuit breaker before reaching your AC load outlet. By following this specific path, protecting the circuit at every stage with breaker, the system is to ensure a safety, steady, and reliable flow of renewable energy to your home. Next is from this diagram, the setup is the energy begins at the solar panels, passing through a DC breaker into the solar charger controller to maintain the health of your battery bank. And what makes this system is unique in the integration of the grid-tied inverter with a limiter. As we see in this wiring, there is a physical connection to the limiter sensor to clamp near the main utility entrance. This sensor acts a traffic controller. It tells the inverter exactly how much solar power to release so that you maximize your free energy without accidentally sending any back to the grid and getting billed for it. The system the feeds into a dual power transfer switch or a synchronized panel board. This is where the magic happens for the load or your home appliance. During a sunny day, your house runs on direct solar powers. If a cloud passes over its nighttime, the system seamlessly draws from the battery bank through the power inverter. If the batteries run low, the system can automatically switch back to the utility grid power. By utilizing the circuit, you aren't just saving money. You are creating a fail-safe environment where your home stays powered by the sun as much as possible, while the grid remains a silent backup, all without the need for a complex net metering agreement with your local power provider. Slide, we understand the TW wirings for these uses, while the panels and inverters often get all the glory in solar presentation, the real unusing heroes of the grid-tied system are the wires that can carry the energy. As you can see in this image, we are looking the TW wire, which stands for the thermoplastic high heat resistance nylon coated wire. Especially the TW designation refers for its thermoplastic moisture resistance properties. And in the solar application, wires can are arteries of the system, and choosing the wrong type can lead to use system failure or worse, electrical fires. The reason we highlight TW wires here is because of its specialized constructions. Because solar installations are often exposed to the elements or you're using, wiring must be able to withstand more than just standard indoor condition. This TW wire is designed with a specific thermoplastic insulation that makes it incredibly moisture resistant. This is a vital because over time humidity or condensation inside conduit can degrade inferior wires, leading it to a short circuit. Additionally, the wire is a flame retardant, meaning it's engineered to resist catching fire even if there is an unexpected surge or heat buildup with the circuit. When you are installing a grid type system, you are dealing with inconsistent electrical loads that can run for 6 to 8 hours straight during peak sunlight, and this creates thermal stress. Using TW wires ensure that insulation won't become brittle or melt under the sustained heat. It provides a layer of security that protects both your expensive equipment, like your hybrid inverters, to the structure of your homes itself. Next is the THW wiring for solar efficiency. For this, moving forward in our look is at critical components, we come to this THW wire. To the untrained eye, it might look like any other cable, but in the underworld of electrical engineering and solar insulation, those letters are a badge of durability. THW stands for a thermoplastic, heat resistance, and moisture resistance, where it shares the moisture resistance and flame retardant qualities of the TW, where we just discussed. The H in the THW signifies a significantly higher tolerance for heat. Specifically, the wire is a 167 degree Fahrenheit without the insulation degrading or becoming soft. Why is the heat resistant factors so vital for a grid-tied solar home? Think about where these fire live. They are often tucked inside conduits that run across scorching hot rooftops or through attic space that trap summer heat. When you combine that external environmental heat with the internal heat generated by a solar system running at full capacity for hours on an end, so standard wires can fail. THW wire is the industry's response to that challenge. Its thermoplastic outer layer is engineered to stay structurally sound under thermal pressure, ensuring that the electrical resistance remains low and your energy efficiency remains high. Furthermore, its moisture-resistant properties mean it is a perfectly suited for wet locations, such as underground conduits or outdoor runs where rain and humidity are constant factors. By this choosing THW wire for your circuit connection, you are essentially future-proofing the home. You are ensuring that as the system works year after year through heat waves and storms, the arteries of your solar power plants won't crack and leak power. It is a small investment in materials that provides massive returns in long-term safety, preventing the risk of short circuits and ensuring that every watt of energy harvested by your panels safely reaches your inverter and your appliance. For the next slide, this is a THHN wire construction. Finally, we look at the most versatile and widely used wire in modern solar project. THHN, this stands for thermoplastic high heat resistance, nylon coated. If you look closely at the diagram in the image, you can see exactly why this wire is superior. It isn't just a single layer of plastic over metal. It is a sophisticated multi-stage engineering marvels. At its core, we have soft-annealed standard copper, which provide the perfect balance of a high conductivity and flexibility, making it much easier to pull through long runs of conduit that is stiff solid wire. Surrounding that copper is a thick layer of PVC insulation. But the real but the real but the real secret is a final outer layer, the nylon jacket. This thin is soft nylon skin acts like a suit of armor. It makes the wire incredibly sleek, reducing friction during installation, and more importantly, it provides an extra chemical barriers against oil, gasoline, and harsh environmental contaminants. This makes the THHN rated for both dry and damp location, giving a installer the peace of mind that the wiring can handle the varying condition of a resident, attic, or a garage-mounted inverter setup. In a grid-tied solar home, efficient is everything because THN is a rated for high temperature. And for this, the next slide is the THWN and THWN2 engineering. As we conclude our deeply in dive into wiring, we arrive the most advanced and then versatile option in the catalog. These THWN and THWN2, while this wire shares that the heat resistant and nylon coated DNA of THHN, the addition is of the W in its name is a game changer for solar safety. The W stand for the water resistant and they signifies that this wires isn't just a moisture resistance. It is a physically engineered to handle being submerged or exposed to heavy water flow without the insulation losing its electrical integrity. And the next is electricians had to choose in between THN for heat or THWN for wet environments, but modern engineering has merged them. The THWN2 shown here is the current gold standard because it is rated for the 90 degrees Celsius in both wet and dry conditions. In the context of a grid-tied solar home, this is a crucial. Think about the outdoor conduits that connect your roof panels to the inverter. These pipes this pipe is can trap rainwater or experience extreme humidity change, yes, throughout the seasons, while standards wire might degrade up over 5 or 10 years of these wet dry cycles. The HWN2 is built to endure them for decades. And from these notes, slides serve as your quick reference guide for the language of electrical safety. When you look up the wires in a solar installation, you're not just seeing random letters. You're seeing a list of built-in protection that tell us the wire uses durable thermoplastic insulation, and its single edge means it's a heat resistant, while double edge is signifying it can handle even higher temperature, essential for the hot rooftop runs. The N stand for nylon coated, which is the thought slippery outer layer that protects the wire from being scrapped or damaged during installation. And finally, the W is your shield against the elements, meaning the wire is water resistant. By understanding the simple code, you can ensure the solar system is built the right materials for the right environment, whether the heat of the attic or the moisture of a outdoor conduits. This rating are what guaranteed your grid-tied home remains safe, efficient, and reliable for the long haul. On this slide, this is a PV wires, which are the elite class of cable design specifically for the extreme condition found directly on your roof. Unlike the standard building wires, where discussed PV wires are built with an XFPE or cross-link polyethylene insulation. This isn't just standard plastic. It is a thermosetting polymer that has been chemically bonded to the withstand extreme ultraviolet radiation and the temperature swings without cracking or becoming brittle over decades is an exposure. As you can see in the diagram, this wire feature flexible thin copper cores, and the thinning process is critical because it prevents the copper from oxidizing or corroding when exposed to the humidity and salty air common in outdoor environments. When you combine this corrosion-resistant core with the Rhodes XLPE outer sheet, you get a cable that can survive for 25 years. PV wiring to connect your solar panels, you are ensuring that the very first link in your energy is also the strongest, protecting your investment from the day installed until the day it eventually pays for itself. And as we conclude the technical portion of this presentation, we must address the most important safety metric in electrical work, and the wire gauge. The image of yours and this screen illustrate the AWI or American Wire Gauge System. In the world of solar, picking the right wire size isn't just about efficiency. It's about preventing fires. The most important things to remember about the AWG system is the inverse rule. The smaller the number and the larger the wire, As you move from a number 14 gauge up to a number 2 gauge, the physical thickness of the copper increases significantly, and with that thickness comes a higher capacity to a carry current, which we measure in amperes, or every components we've discussed from your solar panels to your battery inverter operates at a specifically amperage. If you try a push 100 amperes of a current through a number 14 gauge wire, which of the rated for 15 amperes, the wire will act like a heating element. It will become a red hot, melt its insulation, and potentially cause a fire. This is why use thicker wires like the number 2 gauge shown in the chart. For a high demand connection like the path between your battery and your inverter, where currently is a peak conversion for a smaller load like LED lighting or simple outlet, a thinner number 12 or number 14 gauge wire is perfectly sufficient.
Good day everyone, my name is Michael John B. Estrella from BSEE 3B. So, what is this table about? The National Electrical Code or NEC, Table 310.15B16 is the gold standard for electrician and engineers. Ang purpose nito is to define ampacity, the maximum amount of electric current of a conductor can carry continuously before the heat damage its insulation. So, NEC Table 310.15B16 determines the maximum safe current for electrical conductors. So, to find the right wire, you look at three main things. So, the material, the size, and the temperature. So, sa material is the wire copper or aluminum. Ang copper carries more power for its size. So, sa size naman, the AWG column. Remember, in wire gauge, smaller number mean bigger wire. Sa temperature naman, iba-iba ang temperature. So, 60, 75, or 90 Celsius. The higher the temperature rating, the more current the wire can handle. So, bakit nga ba ito nagmamatter sa solar? In a solar powered home, we use this table to make sure the wire coming from the solar panel to the house are thick enough to handle the sun energy safely. So, if the wire are too small, they waste energy as heat becomes a fire hazard. So, think of this table like a speed limit for electricity. So, ito yung nagsasabi sa atin ng exactly how much current we can push through a specific wire size before it gets dangerously hot. For our solar project, it ensure our system is both efficient and safe. So, ang next table naman, ang table na to ay commonly known as NEC Table 310.15B2A. It is a vital tool for electrical design, especially in solar power system. So, it is used to adjust or derate the amount of current a wire can safely carry based on how hot the surrounding environment is. So, what is it for? So, electrical wires generate heat as current flows through them. So, standard wire ratings assume an ambient temperature of 30 Celsius. If the wire is installed somewhere hotter, like a roof in the sun, so the heat can damage the insulation. So, this table provide a multiplier to fix that. So, how to use it? So, find your temperature. Look at the far left or far right columns to find the expected ambient temperature of your installation. Select your conductor rating. Choose the column that match your wire insulation rating. So, usually 75 Celsius or 90 Celsius. for modern solar wiring like THWN2 or PB wire. So, the number where they met is your correction factor. Next table naman ay table 310.15B3C. So, which provides temperature adder for electrical raceways, or cable installed in direct sunlight or above rooftops. This table is critical for solar power system design to ensure conductors do not overheat due to combined effects of electric current and solar radiation. So, electrical conductors have maximum operating temperature rating. So, typically 60 Celsius, 75 or 90 Celsius. When conduit is placed near a hot roof, the ambient temperature inside that conduit rises significantly. So, this table tells how much to add to the local outdoor temperature before you look up the wire ampacity correction factor. So, the closer a raceway is to the roof, the higher the temperature adder. So, in short, use this table to figure out how much extra heat your wires will feel, so you can choose a wire thick enough to handle it without melting. Ang next table naman ay 310.15 B3A. So, which is standard from the National Electrical Code. This table specifies adjustment factor, also known as the rating factor, for electrical conductors. When you bundle multiple current carrying wire together in a single conduit or cable, they generate heat. If there are too many, that heat can damage the insulation. So, to prevent this, the ampacity of the wire must be reduced. So, this table tells us how much reduce the power in each wire as you add more wire to the bundle. So, it ensures that no matter how many wire are packed together, they stay cool enough to operate safely. So, next naman, American Wire Gauge or AWG. Ito yung chart niya. So, typically used for choosing the correct wire size in electrical project like solar power installation. So, in solar installation, choosing the right wire size based on this chart is essential. So, nagpe-prevent overheating, ensuring the wire can handle the system amperage, minimize voltage drop. Thicker wires reduce energy loss over long distances, which is vital for keeping solar efficiency high. So, ang next table naman ay table 214.6a from the National Electrical Code, which is the standard reference for electrical safety in the United States and many other regions. So, what this table is for? It lists the standard ampere rating for fuses and inverse time circuit breaker. When an electrician or engineer calculates the required protection for a circuit, they must usually select a fuse or breaker that match one of these specific. So, in a grid-tied solar system, you need these ratings to properly size the overcurrent protection for. So, the photovoltaic source and output circuit. The inverter output circuit connecting to your home main panel, and the main service panel itself. So, next naman, ito yung mga step in PV system conductor sizing. So, 1, look for the LSC for rating of PV cell. Next, multiply by 2 safety factors. 3, refer on Table 310.15 B16 for the size of wire. 4. Refer on Table 310.15 B2A for ampacity correction due to ambient temperature more than 30 Celsius. So, 5. Refer on Table 310.15 B3C for ambient temperature adjustment due to conduit or wire distant from the roof. 6 is refer on Table 310.15 B3A. So, ito naman yung for adjustment due to more than 3 wire inside a conduit. Next is find the adjustment due to voltage drop. 8. The value obtained in the last step will be the basis for the size of wire to be used in the PV system. So, next naman, yung nakikita dito ang spec ng dalawang magkaibang solar. So, ito yung two different solar panels. So, next one, sample problem in PV system conductor sizing. So, find the proper wire size for a grid-tied PV system consisting of 3 JA solar panels connected in series with specs at the previous slide. So, yung pinakita nating slide. So, step 1, look for the LSC rating of PV. Ang LSC ng kaninang pinakita natin ay 9.75 ampere. So, ang step 2, multiply by 2 factors. So, makikita natin dito. Next naman ay step 3, refer on the table 310.15 B16 for the size of wire. So, the table indicates number 14 with ampacity of 25 ampere. Since number 14 is not the best practice for PV system, use number 12 with ampacity of 30 ampere. Step 4, ampacity correction due to ambient temperature. So, since Philippines ambient temperature is around 37 Celsius, the table 310.15 B2A indicates 30 degrees or 0.91 is equal to 29 ampere. So, step 5, ambient temperature adjustment due to roof wire distance. So, final wire ampacity. Sa the table 310.15 B2A indicate 27 times 0.71 is equal to 19.17 ampere. So, since 19.71 ampere is ay mas mababa sa 15.23 ampere, our selected wire is number 12. Ito ang mas magpipit sa system. So, step 6. Since there are only 2 wires inside the conduit, this step can now be bypassed. So, step 7. Adjustment due to the voltage drop. So, gamit ang formula, masosolve natin dito. So, since 2.85 is less than 3%, our selected wire is number 12. But since 2.85 is a bit near to 3, would be better to use number 10. Number 10 wire for additional safety factor and for future expansion. So, next, on the previous problem, in case the voltage drop exceeded to 3%, let's say 5%, the additional computation is as follow. So, since the initial selected wire is number 12, make a one step higher adjustment. Select initially number 10. So, select number 10 as the final wire to be used in the system.
Ang K-direct current constant ay isang fixed value na ginagamit para kumatawan sa resistance ng conductor na may sukat na 1,000 circular mills at 1,000 feet ang haba. Sa temperature na 75 degrees Celsius, ginagamit ito para mas mapadali ang pagko-compute ng resistance at voltage drop sa mga electrical conductors. Magkaiba ang value nito depende sa materials. Sa copper, ang K value ay 12.9 ohms, habang sa aluminum naman ay 21.2 ohms. Dahil mas mataas ang resistance ng aluminum kumpara sa copper. Kadalasan, ginagamit ito sa DC calculations, pero pwede rin sa AC systems, lalo na kung ang conductor size ay number 1/0 at mas maliit dahil maliit lang ang difference sa resistance. Ngayon ay pag-usapan natin ang tungkol sa 2% voltage drop chart at kung paano ito ginagamit sa pagpili ng tamang wire size para sa PV system. Ang 2% voltage drop chart ay isang reference guide na ginagamit para mas madaling makapili ng tamang sukat ng wire sa isang solar o photovoltaic system. Sa halip na dumaan sa mahaba at komplikadong step-by-step computation, pwede itong gamitin bilang mabilis na basehan para sa design. Sa actual practices, ang mga values na nakikita sa chart ay kadalasan naka-base sa standard assumptions. Kaya hindi siya eksaktong calculation, kundi isang practical guidelines lamang. May mga pagkakataon na may kasamang computation para ma-verify ang tamang wire size, pero hindi ibig sabihin na kailangan laging sundin ang manual solving. Sa engineering field, madalas ding ginagawa ang pag-oversize ng wire. Ibig sabihin, kumukuha tayo ng mas malaking wire size kaysa sa minimum requirement. Ginagawa ito para mas maging safe ang system, mas mababa ang power loss, at mas stable ang daloy ng kuryente, lalo na kung mahaba ang wiring distance. Sa chart naman, makikita na nakaayos na ang mga wire size kasama ang corresponding voltage drop values. Dito na lang titingin at magbe-base kung anong wire size ang angkop para sa PV system design. Depende sa allowable voltage drop. Halimbawa ay 2%. Ang mas mababang voltage drop ay nangangahulugan ng mas efficient na transmission ng kuryente. Kaya importante itong isaalang-alang sa pagpili ng conductor. Ngayon naman, pag-usapan natin ang calculation para maging efficient ang inverter sa solar system. Dapat ang power ratio nito ay halos kapareho na ang capacity ng solar array o mas mataas lang ng humigit kumulang 10% hanggang 20%. Halimbawa, kung ang solar system ay rated sa 2,000 watts, ang tamang inverter ay dapat malapit din sa 2,000 watts. Kung masyadong mababa ang inverter kumpara sa solar array, hindi ito mamamaximize ang full output ng system. Pero kung masyadong mataas naman ang inverter, maaring bumaba ang efficiency nito. Sa example natin, may rating na 800 watts. Pero pwede natin gamitin ang calculation na may allowance, kaya magiging nasa safe range pa rin ito para sa inverter sizings. Kaya ang tamang pagpili ay isang 1 kilowatt grid tie inverter na swak para sa setup na ito. Yung table na makikita nyo dyan ay yung standard ampere rating table 240.6 na ginagamit para sa mga fuse, circuit breaker at other overcurrent protection devices. Ito yung listahan ng mga standard at approved current ratings na pwede lang gamitin sa electrical system. Importante ito kasi hindi tayo gumagamit ng arbitrary value sa breaker sizing. Kailangan laging standard sizes para compliant sa electrical code at madaling makahanap ng actual device sa market. Ang purpose ng table na ito ay para ma-match natin yung computed current sa pinakamalapit na standard rating. Sa actual design practices, hindi tayo gumagawa ng exact breaker value per calculation, kundi pumipili lang tayo mula sa available standard sizes. Halimbawa, kung ang computed load current natin ay 23 amperes, wala tayong eksaktong 23 amperes sa standard ratings. Kaya ang gagawin natin, pipili tayo ng next higher standard value, which is 25 ampere circuit breaker. Hindi tayo pwede mag-round down kasi kapag mas mababa ang breaker kaysa sa actual load, posible na mag-trip ito kahit normal ang operation. Kaya ang rule ay laging next higher standard rating para masiguradong safe at stable ang system. Sa madaling sabi, ang table ng standard ampere ratings ay mahalaga dahil ito ang ginagamit natin para sa tamang sizing ng fuse at circuit breaker, safety ng electrical installation, reliability ng protection system, at syempre compliance sa electrical code requirements. Kaya kahit may computed value tayo mula sa design, ina-adjust pa rin natin ito sa standard ratings para maging practical, safe at compliant ang final installation. Ngayon ay ipapaliwanag natin ang breaker sizing para sa solar photovoltaic system at ang kahalagahan nito sa safety at reliability ng buong installation. Ang breaker sizing ay isang mahalagang bahagi ng electrical design ng solar PV system. Dahil dito, ang nagsisilbing protection ng circuit laban sa overcurrent, short circuit, at iba pang electrical faults. Sa tamang breaker sizing, masisiguro natin ang kaligtasan ng mga equipment at maiiwasan ang posibleng hazard tulad ng overheating. Ayon sa Philippine Electrical Code, ang current sa solar PV system ay itinuturing na continuous load. Dahil dito, kinakailangan natin i-apply ang 125% safety factor upang magkaroon ng allowance sa design at masiguradong safe at stable ang operation ng system. Para sa DC side, based sa computation mula sa solar panel, ang maximum current ay 15.23 amperes upang makakuha ng tamang breaker size. I-multiply natin ito sa 125% safety factor. 15.23 times 1.25 equals 19.04 amperes. Dahil sa standard breaker ratings na available sa market, walang eksaktong 19.04 amperes. Kaya sa actual installation, pipili tayo ng nearest standard size na mas mataas sa computed value. Sa kasong ito, ang napili ay 20 amperes circuit breaker upang masiguro ang sapat na protection ng hindi magkaroon ng nuisance tripping sa normal operation. Para naman sa AC side, kukunin natin ang current ng inverter gamit ang formula na I equals to P over V kung saan ang PI inverter power sa watts at VI system voltage na 220 volts. Sa computation, ang nakuha nating current ay 4.5 amperes. Pagkatapos, i-apply natin ang 125% safety factor. 4.5 times 1.25 equals to 5.625 amperes. Dahil dito, pipili rin tayo ng nearest higher standard rating. Kaya ang napili ay 6 ampere RCBO. Ang RCBO ay nagbibigay ng combined protection laban sa overcurrent at earth leakage. Kaya mas ligtas ito gamitin sa AC side ng system. Sa kabuuan, sa pagdidisenyo ng breaker sizing para sa solar PV system, mahalagang laging i-apply ang 125% rule para sa continuous load at pumili ng standard breaker rating na mas mataas kaysa sa computed value. Ito ay para makasiguro ang safety, efficiency at reliability ng buong system. Sa final design, ang DC side ay gumagamit ng 20 ampere circuit breaker, habang ang AC side naman ay 6 ampere RCDO. Next naman, pag-usapan natin yung wire na number 12 THHN sa normal condition. Ang capacity niya ay around 30 amperes. Ibig sabihin, ito yung maximum na current na kaya niyang dalhin kapag standard lang yung temperature ng paligid. Usually, mga 30 degrees Celsius at hindi siya masyadong naiinitan o exposed sa extreme condition. Pero sa actual setup, hindi naman lagi ganun ang environment. Kaya kailangan natin ng adjustment o tinatawag na derating. Una, meron tayong ambient temperature correction. Dahil sa mainit sa actual environment kaysa sa standard, bumababa yung capacity ng wire. Kaya imbes na 30 amperes, i-multiply natin siya sa 0.91. 30 times 0.91 equals to 27.3 amperes. Ibig sabihin, dahil sa init ng paligid, naging 27.3 amperes na lang yung safety capacity niya. Sunod naman is mas lalong bumaba yung capacity kapag nasa roof installation yung wire. Kasi aside sa ambient heat, tinatamaan pa siya ng direct heat ng araw at init ng bubong. So, halimbawa, yung condition natin naging 35 degrees Celsius ambient plus 20 degrees Celsius roof heat. Total effect, mas mainit talaga. Dito, may panibagong correction factor. 27.3 times 0.76 equal to 20.75 amperes. So, magiging around 20.8 amperes na lang yung actual safe capacity niya. So, overall, kahit 30 amperes yung original rating ng number 12 THHN wire, sa actual installation, lalo na sa rooftop, bumababa siya hanggang around 20.8 amperes dahil sa init ng environment. Ibig sabihin lang, importante talaga na hindi lang tinitingnan yung datasheet rating ng wire. Kailangan i-consider din yung actual conditions para hindi ma-overload at masiguradong safe yung system. Pag-usapan natin yung surge protection device or SPD sizing sa grid-tied solar power system. Ang SPD ay isang protection device na ginagamit para protektahan ang system laban sa voltage surge tulad ng lightning, switching surges, at iba pang biglaang pagtaas ng voltage sa grid. Ang main function nito ay hindi kontrolin ang normal voltage, kundi i-divert o i-absorb yung sudden high voltage para hindi masira ang mga equipment tulad ng inverter at controller. Sa pagpili ng SPD, mahalagang tinitingnan yung maximum continuous operating voltage or MCOV. Basic rules dito ay ang SPD voltage rating ay dapat kapareho o bahagyang mas mataas kaysa sa system voltage. Karaniwan, recommended na mas mataas siya ng mga 15% hanggang 25% para mas maging durable at hindi agad masira sa normal operation at minor voltage fluctuations. Halimbawa is sa low voltage side ng system, pwede gumamit ng SPD na may rating na 100 to 120 volts AC. Sa typical household o grid side naman, mas appropriate ang 230 to 275 volts AC na SPD rating. Ibig sabihin, hindi lang basta pareho ang SPD at system voltage, kailangan may allowance na mas mataas para sa safety margin. Ito ay para maiwasan ang premature failure ng SPD at mapahaba ang lifespan nito. Sa madaling paliwanag, kung sobrang babaan ang SPD rating, mabilis itong masisira. Kung tama lang o may allowance na 15 to 25, mas stable at mas matagal ang buhay. Kung tama ang matching sa system, mas reliable ang protection ng buong solar setup. Sa kabuuan, ang SPD ay parang safety shield ng system. Pinipili ito based sa system voltage pero may dagdag na allowance para masiguradong kaya nitong protektahan ang system laban sa biglaang surge tulad ng lightning at switching transients. Dahil dito, mas nagiging safe at reliable ang operation ng buong grid tied solar power system. Ngayon, pag-usapan naman natin yung SPD specifications o yung mga importanteng technical ratings na dapat nating tingnan sa surge protection device. Una, meron tayong in or nominal discharge current. Ito yung standard current na kaya ng SPD na i-handle ng paulit-ulit habang nagda-divert ng surge current. Ibig sabihin, ito yung normal surge level na kaya niyang i-absorb without damage or degradation sa performance. Sunod naman yung Imax or maximum discharge current. Ito naman yung pinakamataas na surge current na kaya ng SPD i-handle kahit isang beses lang o during extreme events. Halimbawa na lang is lightning surge. Mas mataas ito kaysa sa in. Pero usually, limited lang ang bilang ng events na kaya niyang i-handle sa ganitong level. Pangatlo ay ang UC or yung maximum continuous operating voltage or MCOV. Ito yung maximum voltage na kaya ng SPD na i-handle continuously nang hindi siya nagtitrip o nasisira. Importante ito kasi dito natin binabase kung compatible pa yung SPD sa system voltage. Dapat ang UC ay equal or slightly higher sa actual system voltage para safe ang operation. Pang-apat naman ay yung voltage ay ang up voltage protection rating na tinatawag din na surge voltage rating or SVR o clamping voltage. Ito yung level ng voltage na papayagan lang ang SPD na dumaan sa protected equipment. Ibig sabihin, kapag may surge, ikaklamp ng SPD yung voltage sa value na ito para hindi na umabot sa sensitive equipment tulad ng inverter. Mas mababa ang up sa mas maganda ang protection kasi mas maliit lang ang voltage na aabot sa equipment. Pag-usapan natin ang solar panel orientation. o kung paano tama i-install ang solar panels para makuha ang maximum sunlight at mas mataas ang energy output ng system. Sa solar installation, isa sa pinaka-importante ang factor ay ang direction ng panel. Ito yung kung saan nakaharap ang solar panel. Sa general rule, depende ito sa hemisphere ng bansa. Sa mga bansa na nasa Northern Hemisphere, ang solar panels ay dapat nakaharap sa south direction. Sa mga bansa na nasa Southern Hemisphere, ang solar panels ay dapat nakaharap sa north direction. Reason nito is dahil sa movement ng araw throughout the day. Mas consistent ang exposure ng sunlight kapag tama ang direction ng panel. Kaya mas mataas ang energy production. Ngayon, ang Pilipinas ay nasa bandang equator pero technically kabilang pa rin sa Northern Hemisphere. Dahil dito, ang recommended orientation ng solar panels dito ay south facing. Kapag south facing ang panel, mas balance ang sun exposure mula morning hanggang afternoon. Ibig sabihin, mas stable ang power generation at hindi madaling bumaba ang output kahit magpalit ang oras ng araw. Bukod sa direction, isa pang importanteng factor ay ang tilt angle ng solar panel. Ang tilt angle ay yung pagkahilig ng panel mula sa flat position. Importante ito kasi dito nakadepende kung gaano ka effective makakapture ng panel yung sunlight. May general rule sa solar design na optimal tilt angle equals latitude of the location. Ibig sabihin kung anong latitude ng lugar, yun din ang basehan ng tilt angle ng panel. Kung malapit sa equator, maliit lang ang tilt angle. Kung sa equator, mas mataas ang tilt angle para mas nakatutok sa araw. Sa Pilipinas, ang latitude natin ay around 12 degrees to 14 degrees. Kaya ang recommended tilt angle ng solar panels ay nasa 12 to 14 din. Kapag gantong angle ang gamit, mas balance ang solar exposure sa buong taon. Hindi man perfect every single day, pero sa annual performance, ito yung tinatawag nating efficient setup. Bakit importante ang orientation at tilt? Kapag mali ang orientation o angle, pwede na bumaba yung tinatawag nating energy output ng system. Hindi niya maximize yung sunlight exposure. Pwede magkaroon ng uneven production sa buong araw. Tapos, hindi ma-achieve yung expected efficiency ng solar PV system. In summary, direction equals kung saan nakaharap ang panel. South sa Pilipinas, syempre. Tilt angle, equal naman siya kung gaano ka-tilted around 12 to 14. Yung goal naman is equal siya sa mas maraming makapture na sunlight para mas mataas ang power production. Ngayon, pag-usapan natin yung concept ng zero bill sa solar powered home. Ang ibig sabihin ng zero bill ay hindi talaga literal na zero lagi. Pero ito yung setup kung saan ang solar system mo ay kaya i-produce halos lahat ng electricity na kailangan ng bahay mo. Kaya ang nangyayari, minimal na lang o minsan wala nang babayaran sa electric bill. Depende syempre sa design at usage. Ang goal ng zero bill system ay i-match yung solar energy production or equal sa household energy consumption. Kung pantay sila, theoretically, possible ang zero bill. Pero sa actual setup, may mga factors pa rin na kailangan i-consider tulad ng weather changes, shading, system losses, seasonal variation ng sunlight. Kaya madalas ang nangyayari near zero bill kaysa perfect zero every month. Paano ito nakukuha? Ginagamit pa rin natin yung basic process ng sizings. Una is kunin ang monthly consumption. Halimbawa, 300 kWh per month. I-convert sa daily load, 10 kWh per day. I-consider ang peak sun hours, around 5 hours sa Philippines. I-compute ang required solar system size, around 2.2 kW sa example. I-round up ang number of panels, around 8 panels for 300 watts each. Bakit hindi perfect zero lagi? Kahit tama ang sizing, may mga dahilan kung bakit hindi laging zero. Una is rainy season. Bumababa syempre ang solar generation kapag nighttime usage. Walang solar production sa gabi. Suddenly, increase in load, dagdag appliances or usage, system inefficiencies, inverter and wiring losses. Paano mas lalapit sa zero bill? Para mas ma-achieve ang near zero bill, pwede gawin ang mga sumusunod. Tama ang system sizing based sa actual consumption. Proper orientation ng solar panels, minimal shading sa installation area, paggamit ng energy efficient appliances. Optional, pwede gumamit ng battery storage para sa night usage. Ganito ang magiging resulta ng tamang computation plus proper installation plus realistic energy usage planning. Kung tama ang design, kaya nitong isupply ang malaking bahagi ng kuryente ng bahay. Kaya yung electricity bill ay magiging very low or sometimes closest to zero. Syempre, depende sa conditions.